The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this 14th episode of the Secret Doctrine. This and all subsequent webinars will be on makara.us under the subheading Moria Federation webinars. You can see where the big red arrow is there. Okay, let's see what HPB and Colonel Olcott are up to. Last month found them just returning from Colombo, Ceylon, which is Sri Lanka these days. And this reading will get some idea of just how difficult it was to gain momentum with the Theosophical Society in India, in spite of their incredible popularity in Ceylon. So could we get a reader for this
Michael,
reading, please?
can you read that for us, please?
Okay. To add to the gloominess of the outlook on our return from Ceylon, we found the Bombay members inert and the new branch asleep. 2 months of our absence seemed to have almost stifled the local interest in our work, and when the vernacular paper above referred to opened its batteries against us, our sky looked cloudy. Still, we kept on with stout hearts, getting the Theosophist out punctually every month and attending to our ever-increasing correspondence. That was one of those crises when, in quasi-isolation, HPB and I were drawn together most closely for mutual support and encouragement. Though the dearest friends might prove false and the staunchest adherents fall away, we just gave each other the more words of cheer and conspired to make each other think that the trouble was not worth mentioning and must pass over us like a flitting summer cloud. And then we knew, for both of us had the constant proof
Sorry.
that the great ones with whom we worked had their potent thought round and about us, a very shield from all harm, a harbinger of perfect success for our cause. A few of our Hindu and Parsi co-adjusters visited us regularly, and by degrees we regained our lost ground in India. In America, things were at a standstill, nobody there having, at that time, the ability or energy to push on the movement. Judge, then but a dreaming tyro of 25 or 26, was starving at the law. More than ever, the evolutionary center was confined to us two, and the only hope of the survival of the movement was in our living on and never permitting our energies to flag for a moment.
Thank you, Michael. Yeah, it's hard to imagine that this was the state of the Theosophical Society when you consider that at its height, sometime in the 20s, there were millions and millions of members, both in India, the US, and the UK particularly, but all over the world as well. But this is just the very beginnings of the movement, which was actually started by Olcott, not by HPB. She, of course, endorsed it, but it was Colonel Olcott that got things moving on an organizational level. Okay, back to the Secret Doctrine. We're on the 6th of 9 verses that make up the first stanza of Dzyan. So let's back up just a bit. We've covered this material, but I'd like to bring these webinars together by doing just a bit of review and read through HPB's commentary on section A, which is, her first commentary on this verse. So if we could get a reader just to bring us up to our current position by reading through this.
Asha, can you read that for us, please?
Yeah, hold on 1 second.
That's fine.
I just stepped away, I'm sorry. The seven sublime lords and the seven truths had ceased to be
It ceased to be.
had ceased to be, oh, okay. And the universe, the son of necessity, was immersed in Nishpana,
Something like that.
absolute perfection, Paranirvana, which is Yonggrup, to be outbreathed by that which is and yet is not. Naught was. The seven sublime lords are the seven creative spirits, the Dhyan Chohans, who correspond to the Hebrew Elohim. It is the same hierarchy of angels to which Saint Michael, Saint Gabriel, and others belong in the Christian theogony. Only while, a little closer to me, only while Saint Michael, for instance, is allowed in diagnostic Latin theology to watch over all the promontories and gulfs in the esoteric system, the Dhyanis watch successfully over one of the rounds and the great root races of our planetary chain. They are, moreover, said to send their bodhisattvas, the human correspondents of the Dhyani Buddhas, of which Vide and Phra, during every round and race. Of which during every round and race. Out of the seven truths and revelations, or rather revealed secrets, 4 only have been handed to us, as we are still in the 4th round, and the world also has only had 4 Buddhas so far. This is a very complicated question and will receive more ample treatment later on. So far, there are only 4 truths and 4 Vedas, say the Hindus and the Buddhists. For a similar reason, Irenaeus insisted on the necessity of 4 Gospels, but as every new root race at the head of a round must have its revelation and revealers, the next round will bring the 5th, the following the 6th, and so on.
Thank you, Asha. So, thoughts or questions about this segment, which we covered last time? I'd like to reread my comments on this with some additions from last time. These secrets that HPD describes are not something that could be whispered from one person to another, but are rather fundamental capacities bestowed on humankind, like, for instance, the fire of mind bestowed by the Manasaputras. HPB tells us that the reason only 4 secrets have been imparted thus far is because we are in the 4th round. The fact that we are also on the 4th globe and on the 4th chain may also have something to do with it. I'm guessing that there are also lesser secrets, though certainly momentous, given out during these lesser cycles, like for each root race, for instance. Through the accelerated course of their progression, initiates gain access to these secrets before they are bestowed on humanity as a whole. And in so doing, become part of the mechanism for preparing humanity to receive those secrets, right? You go forth only to turn your back on that light and serve. Possibly the next secret will be intuition, which would bring the influence of the soul realm into the realms of human endeavor for all of humanity. So any thoughts or questions about this before we move into new material? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, please go ahead, Vera.
Yeah, it was the last sentence of the previous paragraph that every new root race at the head of a round must have its revelation. So just explain this to me. We are the 5th root race and we are at the 4th round. So can you marry that root race at the head of a round?
Yeah, it's but as every new root race at the head of a round. Yeah, that would be the first root race of that round of passage through the globes. So, and the secret would be revealed then, but then depending on what the secret was or the capacity was, if it's for instance, a function of mind, then it wouldn't actually manifest until most likely the fifth root race of that particular.
So at the head of our fourth round was Atlanteans.
No, the head of because okay, let's first of all get clear on what a round is. There are 7 root races in each globe. As you may know this, but others may not remember. We covered this to some extent last time. And there are 7 globes in a round, right? So there's actually a jump of 2 octaves here when you're comparing root races and rounds. So just how that works is not revealed here, but so because the head of a round, it would suggest, would be the first root race of the first globe of that round through the 7 globes, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's, it's not very clear, and she does that occasionally where, unlike DK, it's not further explained until possibly later in the SD. But I'm glad you brought it up. It strikes me as an odd pairing, a new root race at the head of a round, not the head of a globe, or not a globe at the head of a round, which would be, to me, the more congruous pairing, Okay, so I'm afraid I can't really answer your question there.
But that's fine. At least I don't feel so.
Out of it. Yeah. Yeah. Just join the ranks. Yeah, and also it's further confused by the second half of that second phrase in that sentence. The next round will bring the 5th, the following the 6th, and so on, suggesting almost like it's talking about root races, but to stay congruous to what she has said before, it would have to be rounds, right? But behind the particulars of this, the concept holds, which is that the truths are indeed great truths, which are, as I understand it anyway, capacities for the humanity of that time, whatever that is. For instance, in the previous solar system, it was a great victory just to make the autonomous organs indeed autonomous, just for them to work automatically. That was a great accomplishment, in the development of the physical form, In fact, I think that happened in this solar system in the earlier chains of this system. But it's very difficult to get consistency in these writings concerning change rounds and root races, because first of all, there's not all that much written on it that comes from sources that you can trust, which I consider to be primarily Blavatsky and Dualkuhl, right? I've been threatening just for my own, sure, Asha. I've been threatening just on my own to compile every mention of root race, round, and chain, and try to parse it out to a better understanding than I have been able to so far. Anyway, thank you. Any other questions about this before we head into new territory?
Francis.
Yeah.
We may have to look at root race in relation to a round different from root races in relation to globes.
Well, I don't know how that would work, Michael. If you know the root race is a subdivision, a sevenfold subdivision of a globe, and that's always how I've understood it to be. And a round is passage through 7 globes of a chain. So, you know, I don't know how that would look.
You know, it's using the same term in a different way, perhaps.
There is that possibility. You know, for instance, as Scott pointed out last time, by the way, Scott join us this time?
Yes.
Oh, good. Great. The universe is, what's often meant by the universe is this solar system, right? Well, that's not at all the general meaning of the term universe. So you may have a switch out of terms going on here. But if so, I don't know what it would be. It's one of those that will hold up and wait for further enlightenment, unless there is an esotericist among you that can decrypt, is that the right word? Make less cryptic, you know, this whole passage.
Perhaps in a few incarnations.
Yeah, as we were speaking of. Okay, let's move forward. Now we are in new territory. We've moved on to section B. I hope you have all gotten a sense of how she presents this material. If you look up at the now grayed out verse, you'll see that the A section refers to what, you know, preceded that letter A, and the B section, which is, and the universe, the son of necessity, was immersed in Paranishpana. So all her commentary will be, at least to the level that she is disciplined, will be about that section, and then finally the C section. So, I mean, it's kind of obvious, but it's also easy just to not notice these things sometimes. So, okay, let's start with this first statement. Could we get a reader, please?
Let me see. James, can you read for us? James, are you there?
Hello, James. Are you there?
I'm getting some, here, let me just try somebody else, okay? Karen, can you read for us, please?
Okay, you want me to start at number 6 at the top?
No, always, and this is a general rule, I highlight what's to be read and I gray out
okay.
what's not to be read.
Okay, Paranishpana is the absolute perfection to which all existences attain at the close of a great period of activity, or Mahamanvantara, and in which they rest during the succeeding period of repose. In Tibetan, it is called Yongrub. Up to the day of the Yogacara school, the true nature of Paranirvana was taught publicly, but since then it has become entirely esoteric, hence so many contradictory interpretations of it. It is only...
Okay, no.
Okay.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Go ahead, finish that.
It is only a true idealist who can understand it.
Yeah, we'll read that line. So start formulating your thoughts and questions about this. So Paranishpana, or absolute perfection, is the state of enlightenment achieved at the end of a great period of activity. But we can hypothesize that this doesn't only happen at the end of a Mahamanvantara. I mean, you know, the strict meaning of the term may apply to a Mahamanvantara, but some level of perfection must also occur in a relative sense at the end of each chain, round, globe, and root race as a result of the fulfillment of the purpose of that period of manifestation. You know, the 7th of each of these is the fulfillment. Like, for instance, the seventh root race, of which we are now in the fifth, will accomplish some purpose that was set out for this entire root race to accomplish, right? And that can be said for, you know, each, and that would also fulfill the purpose of that one globe in seven, in this case, the fourth globe, right? So there are purposes nested in within purposes, right? So the purpose of this set of each root race, like for this one, it's the achievement of mental polarization in this root race, which still has a long way to go, right? That is part of the purpose of this entire globe. And then that globe is part of the purpose of the seven globes that make up the round of which it is a part. And of course, we're not privy to these purposes because in many instances, they are probably a part of the secret that's imparted, of which we have 4 at this point, though they're not named. Okay, so and any thoughts about this? I'm afraid that for a little while, especially in the next section, we're going to be getting into some hard and fast Sanskrit terms. They're going to be coming at us, so we'll just take it as they come and slow it down enough so that we can understand what we're reading. So let's start by, if there's no questions on this immediately, we'll start by looking at a definition of Yogacharya. The reason being that she often throughout the SD refers to this school. So can we get a reader to read this definition? It's from the Theosophical Glossary.
Scott, can you read that for us, please?
I can give it a try.
Go for it.
Okay.
Oh, Mike, yeah. That's Samantabhadra. Samantabhadra, about 3/4 of the way down. The others are not as bad.
Okay. Yogacharya, Sanskrit, from yoga, union, plus acharya, teacher. A teacher of yoga, a mystic and highly esoteric school founded by the original Arya Sangha, who lived at a date long preceding the pseudo-Arya Sangha of the 5th or 6th century, who taught the doctrines of the Tantra besides some of the elements of the Yogacharya system. The earlier Arya Sangha was an arhat and founded the original Yogacharya school, a thoroughly esoteric institution. The latter's school is a bridge of the Mahayana and is of a truly spiritual type, its teachings being identical to the essence of those of Theosophy. This Yogacharya school must not be confused with the Mahatantra school, which was founded by Samantabhadra. Samantabhadra, okay, whose teachings were later collected and glossed around the 6th century by the pseudo-Arya Sangha in connection with litanies, formularies, spells, etc. This school is wholly exoteric, popular, and its works are largely a composite of tantric worship and ritualism that can lead the student only to black magic and sorcery.
Thank you. So, thoughts or questions? Thinking about this. Of note here is the fact that the teachings of the earlier Yogacharya, which is the true one, right? The earlier Yogacharya school were identical with the teachings found in Theosophy. Yogacharya refers to both a teacher and a school. So it would be, you know, this is some great incarnation master that came at this early time. And was, since she refers to the Yogacharya school, I mean, even during this session, you'll find many references it was obviously highly regarded by HPB, though she does make a distinction between Yogacarya school and the highest level of the esoteric teachings. So it's not a fully realized occultism or esotericism, but largely so. Certainly among the highest forms that she has come across, right? So, any thoughts about this? These two Yogacarya types. Arya Sangha types, and this Yogacarya school. Before we move on, okay, let's keep it going. Can we get a reader for this second? And it won't hurt to, once in a while, we'll just reread the verse, which is always the big print up at the top, and then pick up with the commentary. So if we could do that, new reader.
Vera, can you read for us, please?
Yeah. The seven sublime lords and the seven truths had ceased to be, and the universe, the son of necessity, was immersed in paranishpana, absolute perfection. Paranirvana, which is young group, to be out-breathed by that which is and yet is not, not was. Should I read further?
And if you would read the highlighted part, that would be great.
It is only a true idealist who can understand it. Everything has to be viewed as ideal, with the exception of paranirvana, by him who would comprehend that state and acquire a knowledge of how non-ego, voidness, and darkness are three in one and alone, self-existent and perfect. It is absolute, however, only in a relative sense, for it must give room to still further absolute perfection, according to a higher standard of excellence in the following period of activity. Just as a perfect flower must cease to be a perfect flower and die in order to grow into a perfect fruit, if a somewhat Irish mode of expression may be permitted.
Thank you. Okay, well, that last reference is lost on me. The word idealist, as HPB uses it here, is strictly theosophical. The ideal is, as many of you know, the higher form aspect of the idea, and then the lowest aspect is, of course, the idol, the physical plane or physical emotional plane, which originates in divine thought. Paranirvana is the exception. Remember, it says the only exception, with the exception of paranirvana, because it stands beyond not only beyond the realm of ideals, but even beyond ideas. This is completely in the realm of beingness and not in the realm of mentation or reflection. Through the analogy of the flower, HPB describes the idea of relative perfection, a concept that sets theosophy apart from all but the most esoteric religious systems of thought. Does everybody understand what I mean by, what she means, I should say, by relative perfection? For example, exoteric Buddhists consider enlightenment as a final goal. And it's just one thing, and you reach it, and then you're there. For Christians, of course, it's heaven. You make it to heaven, there's nowhere else to go. That's it. But theosophists and all esoteric forms of religions, and there usually is one, even though sometimes not very robust, believe in the continuous unfolding of consciousness. So thoughts or questions about this section? Anyone?
Yes. Go ahead, please, Vera.
If you can relate this non-ego, voidness, and darkness are the three in one to the Trinity, is
That's interesting. I don't know about that. I don't know if it's directly relatable. I think they're more descriptive of the same condition in this case. At least that's how it occurs to me. If anybody else sees that connection, jump in there. See, the non-ego here, first of all, you have to see this. I think I have this in my notes for later, but the non-ego is described here. We're not talking soul. We're talking about the concept of a vehicle. So it would be any kind of form aspect, you know. In our case, the highest being, you know, the monad. But this is even the monadic. This would even transcend the monadic vehicle, right? Non-ego. Ego literally means egg, right? So that means that which carries spirit into the form realm, you know, in its most basic or primary sense of the word, even though 99% of the time it's used to describe the soul in DK's work. That's not what's being described here. So the lack of a vehicle, voidness, and darkness, you know, are these three aspects. I don't have a sense of voidness here as much as I do of darkness. Darkness is that which it's a very particular use of the term, which is the birthplace of light, right? And so it's very much associated with the first aspect, or the deity aspect. You know, light comes from darkness. You know, I think it's even somewhere there in Genesis, right there in the beginning. You know, that the darkness is the absolute pre-existing condition. Well, she tells us here that it's also voidness and non-ego, right? So as to voidness, I think it probably has to do with the primordial space, which stands in a causal relationship to space as we understand it.
Yeah.
But that's the only. In terms of the Trinity, I just don't know about that. I don't. If so, I don't see it.
Okay, thank
But
you.
it is a Trinity, so there's probably some connection. Yeah. Okay.
All right, and then we have a comment from Asha. She says, and I think it's in reference to that last part there. She says, the British make jokes about the Irish, just like the Indians have jokes about the Sikhs. She says it's just silly nonsense, but part of the collective cultural joke for the lower mind.
Okay. All right. Well, good to know. Good to know. Thank you. So I want to take these terms as they come at us. It's actually going to be harder in the beginning here, because many of these terms she uses all through the SD. So for instance, paranishpana, which is just a nonsense term until you start to really understand what it means. Another one of those is paranirvana, which is analogous to paranishpana. I see one as I'm not sure that I could actually distinguish the two. But anyway, we're going to take these as they come so that they gradually become familiar to us. Terms I won't focus on are obscure names of schools that she quotes from the time of Buddha's. Like usually she contrasts two schools of thought, like she just did with the Yogacarya, right? And we won't give any focus here, but these fundamental terms I'd like to make clear. So Can we get a reader for?
Okay, we have a hand.
Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Please go ahead, Asha.
When we talk about the absolute, I think of it as that which is not, like it's beyond description, beyond anything. So when we talk about the void and the dark, that's still creation, isn't it? I mean, this is all.
Well, but they're inherently negatives. Darkness is the absence of light, and voidness is the absence of anything in that void, right? And then non-ego, of course, is the absence of ego. So, but you're absolutely right. The whole thing about the absolute, and in fact, if you look at these 7 verses or 9 verses of the first stanza together, they're all negatives. They're all, not, was, and they're described in terms of what's called neti, not this, not that, right? Because there is no, what you could say, positive description available to us. There's nothing that we could say that it is. There's absolutely nothing we can say about it. And therefore we can't say it is, and anything we fill in there is not going to be correct. But we can say it's not, it's not the city of Detroit, it's not, and then go up from there. So the idea is to pitch you beyond what you think it might be. Oh, the absolute, maybe it's this, but then through these readings, and I think it's in, where is it? Esoteric Psychology 2, maybe. He talks about this old commentary that goes on for like 10 pages of just describing what the absolute is not, right? So here we get 3 of what it isn't, you could, what you can do with these negatives is look at what they're pointing towards, right? It's so, for instance, darkness, somehow in this darkness is a condition that wherein light can come, I was going to say be born, but anything you say, you're going to get in trouble because, for instance, one thing said about the absolute, maybe the most difficult, is that it reflects the first logos, essentially, which is still a complete non-individualized being that from it, this second logos comes into being, which then allows for the third logos, which is, speaking of the Trinity, that's the ultimate Trinity. And which makes me think that what we're looking at here, this one, is altogether beyond, that Trinity. So, and it's only when you get to the third logos that you actually have a creator. And even there, that logos creates the creators. There is no direct creation even at the third logos. So this is an extraordinarily unknown, mysterious process of issuing into the realm of becoming that starts with the absolute, which is both inherent. That means even as things come into being, it's the true nature of all is the absolute, stands at the center of all being, and it's also transcendent because it is the goal of becoming, right? But if you're trying to wrap your mind around it, there's nowhere you can go. It's kind of like, if you take a plane and you take it up to as high as you can, there's a point where you just there's no air left for the wings to go over. Well, the mind is like that. There's just literally no concepts, no words, no ideas that will take you into this realm, right? So.
Thank you.
And we have another hand up.
Yeah.
Actually, we have a couple. Let's go to Terry. Please go ahead.
Hello, Terry.
What is puzzling me is this idea that naught was. What is the particular point of trying to create a situation in which nothing is? Nothing is.
Yeah, you know, when you figure that one out, let me know.
But I wonder why she is emphasizing it. Why does she bring this in? It's brought in as kind of afterthought, isn't it? Naught was.
Oh, I see. Well, of course, this isn't her. This is old commentary at the highest level. So when you're looking at the verse itself, which is the enlarged font at the top there, that is the old commentary that she's commenting on. And so that's the original writings, which are, if we, believe these sources are ages old, very probably millions of years, if not older. But their translation into English was done by some master that worked through her. The commentary is her. It's her understanding, but again, she's overshadowed the entire time. But there is definitely an octave step down. So it's an emphasis. It's like it just sums up everything that is said before that, right? Is really what it is. In case there's any doubt, the seven sublime lords, the seven truths, the universe, the son of necessity, it all had been drawn back into. That is to say, all distinction had been withdrawn, and what was left was something that stands in a causal relationship to any form of particularity, right? And that's what is meant by was, the is, the is aspect of was, which is existence in that usual sense. Now we, with our finite minds, can't really conceive of anything that would precede or stand in a causal relationship to existence. You can do a little bit with it with your imagination, but if you take this into meditation, you'll quickly find that ceiling. Again, I go back to the metaphor, for some reason it's really coming up, to where the air envelope stops around the planet. If your mind is an airplane, you just need air in order to think. You need thoughts, you need ideas, you need language. Therefore, you cannot go into space. And yet, if you look up from that tiny, thin envelope of air, which is only a few miles thick, you then are looking into the infinite that stretches beyond that, and that's the not that, in this case, not was. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
To some extent, anyway, thank you.
No, do you have another comment? Go ahead, Sherry.
No, I think it helps to some extent.
Oh, good.
Good.
It might help just to realize that that it's not about getting it. It's not about, if I just knew more, if I could understand this better, I get it. It's not the fact that you don't know Sanskrit. It's not the fact that you're not familiar with occultism. None of that. That you could take the most learned being on the planet and they would be in the exact same situation. They would have a much clearer understanding of what it isn't. That's all, you know. And it's part of the frustration of this first part of the Secret Doctrine is that we're not going to be reading about anything that we can really grasp. You know, I mean, she moves always, you know, she moves into talking about schools and stuff, and so we can understand that. It's finite, we get it, right? But when it comes to the essence of what she's talking about, you just have to hold, you know, hold the fact or the hold in yourself that disconnect as just being the condition of how it is, you know.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else before we move on?
Maybe. Scott, did you have a comment that you wanted to make?
Only to say that it seems to me all trinities, if they're truly trinities, are analogous. They have corresponding parts. And sometimes lining up those parts is not so easy, and maybe impossible. I don't know. But we're going back to this trinity we're talking about here, non-ego, voidness, and darkness. As you know, down on the further on this page, she gives out another trinity for the absolute.
Yeah, she does. That's right.
Match them up: motion, abstract, space, and duration.
Now, there you might, yeah.
That's an interesting mix. Try and align those. But I think any trinity, real essential trinity, has the same three elements that we know about. It's got to be there if it's a real trinity.
I think you're right, and I think it's instead of just name three things you like, kind of a trinity.
Right.
This is a real trinity because she says immediately following are three in one.
Exactly.
And that really codifies it and makes it a trinity. So let's hold that until we get to these aspects of the great breath, which she describes of the divine breath, the absolute, that is to say. And we'll jump back and see if there's a connection we can make there. Good thought, Scott. That's great. Anyone else?
Yes, Diana says, could we affirm that parinirvana is the absolute perfection and nirvana is just perfection?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can do that. It doesn't give you much, but you can do that. Parinirvana is a condition beyond manifestation. In other words, it's part of the pralaya experience that or the day be with us experience that is stands in a causal relationship to all manifestation, whereas nirvana is a relative experience. And the nirvana experience is in relationship to that, to the illusion that precedes that nirvana, right? So it's nirvana in comparison to X, Y, and Z, right? But parinirvana is absolute and beyond all manifestation. You'll get a lot of different definitions of nirvana, Buddhist nirvana, theosophical nirvana, and it's a conditional experience. You can have it as a human being, right? It's part of a state of a transcendent state of consciousness, right? You can ascribe it to some awareness connected with some subplane of some plane, right? Whatever that might be. But parinirvana is outside and beyond, or outside/inside and beyond that system altogether. Okay, anyone else?
No, I think we're ready to move on.
Okay, now we can have this definition of parinirvana. which you just asked about. So if we could get a reader for that.
Well, sure. Let's get Diana. Can you read that for us?
Oh my God! Are you sure?
Instant karma.
Yeah. Paranirvana in Sanskrit, that which is beyond nirvana, as you said before. The period of cosmic rest, Mahapralaya, or great night, or Brahma, lasting,
Trillion.
oh my God, all these years, terrestrial years.
Yeah, that's 311 trillion, 40 billion. And, you know, more or less, you know, since they're all zeros, who knows?
Imagine. Likewise, called the great day be with us, the Egyptian day of come to us, and the Christian day of the last judgment, which, however, has been materialized by modern dogmatism. So the day, I have a problem. The day when the spark will become the flame, man will merge into his Dayan Chohan, myself and others. I have a problem with okay, and others. Thyself and me, as the stanza has it, means this: in Paranirvana, when Pralaya will have reduced not only material and physical bodies, but even the spiritual egos to their original principle, the past, present, and even the future humanities. Like all things, will be one and the same. Everything will have re-entered the great breath. In other words, everything will be immersed in Brahma, or the divine unity. Secret Doctrine. The cosmic pralaya is analogous to the death of the human being. The spiritual monads are drawn into higher. I cannot read anything else here in the slide.
Ranges of being to live and evolve, while in the lower elements or bodies of the universe disperse, as does our physical and lower psychological vehicles after death. And the only correction I feel that's important to point out is a few lines up, it says, when Pralaya will have reduced not only material and psychical bodies, not physical bodies.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
That's all right. It's an easy mistake to make. So no problem there. Okay. Any questions about this theosophical glossary definition of paranirvana?
Anne says, when I look at Lawrency, they refer paranirvana to world 44 monadic and nirvana to world 45 atmic.
I don't know what that means. World 44, world 45. What does that mean?
Anne?
Am I unmuted?
Yes.
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 Hi.
Hi. I tried to put Lawrence's 49 words into Bailey's system, and word 44 would be the monadic word, and word 45 would be the atmic.
Oh, I see. I think. So what you're saying is you would have them paranirvana and nirvana would be as monadic and atmic. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that is what
right.
I.
Well, paranirvana is here. You know, certainly in some contexts, paranirvana may be used as you describe it, where, you know, because I have heard of nirvana being associated with atmic consciousness, you know, that which is beyond the Buddhic. And so just, look again, what does parinirvana mean here? Literally, that which is beyond nirvana, right? So you can place it in the very next plane with the monadic, and it would be accurate in that it is beyond nirvana. As it is described in this glossary, it refers to that which is totally beyond manifestation altogether. So I would guess that it just depends on the system of thought that you're involved in with this. But you get it that it's not going to be really that different. The concept is the same. It's just that the parinirvana that you're describing is a relative parinirvana, right? As opposed to this description that's given here, which is the absolute parinirvana. If anybody, has any, this is always true, if anybody has any particular knowledge, a lot of times, those who are involved in Buddhism or Hinduism or esoteric schools other than theosophy, you may have further definitions that could be useful to us. So please speak up if that does happen. Okay, let's see here now. So parinirvana emphasizes the state of unity, whereas pralaya emphasizes the end of a manifested cycle. That's one distinction that I noticed, though the two are one. HPB tells us that the 3-in-1 perfection of parinirvana is non-ego, voidness, and darkness, the latter being the source of primordial light. At this primordial level, I think that non-ego would mean literally no egg, meaning no monadic vehicle, no form of any type. Okay. So any further thoughts before we step into the next section? Okay, let's move on. Can we get a reader, please?
Sure.
And I don't think we need to read the verse again. Just start with the commentary.
Lona, can you read that for us, please?
Oh, yes. Just a moment. Yes, I can.
Thank you.
The Secret Doctrine teaches the progressive development of everything, worlds as well as atoms, and this stupendous development has neither conceivable beginning nor imaginable end. Our universe is only one of an infinite number of universes, all of them sons of necessity, because links in the great cosmic chain of universes, each one standing in the relation of an effect as regards its predecessor and being a cause as regards its successor.
Thank you, Lona. Thoughts about this? Any questions? So this statement on progressive development it's one of the fundamental tenets of theosophy. All units of consciousness, whether an atom of substance or a galaxy, are engaged in an unending expansion of consciousness. For even the lesser pralayas that occur between cycles are only temporary periods of rest before renewed growth. In addition, every stage of becoming is an effect of what has gone before. This is it's fascinating and really important teaching. It also relates to the nidanas, which are the causes of misery that we reviewed, I think it was a couple of times ago, and how they're all linked. This definitely relates to that. Every stage is an effect of what has gone before, as well as being causal to that which is yet to come. This cause and effect relationship gives us a clue as to the meaning behind the term sons of necessity, right? So lots here. There's this is a really important paragraph here. Two very primary thoughts: cause and effect, and the infinite quality of expansion in consciousness. Did you about to say something, Biel?
Yeah, I think you just answered Diana's question. She said it could be the cause of all the causes.
What is?
What you're talking about here, the sons of necessity, the infinite number of universes. Let's.
Okay.
Is that what you mean,
want
Diana?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is because thinking about the paranirvana, what is, it's beyond the nirvana, and so everything what happened after paranirvana is in the world of the form, is the world of the causes and effects. And according with the Buddhists, there are no an independent cause. They say that there are no cause, only one cause. I think that maybe paranirvana is the cause of all the causes.
Yeah, that's actually has a name. It's called the causeless cause. The causeless cause.
Oh.
That which itself has no cause is causeless, yet it itself is a cause. So when you see that phrase, you know you've reached the absolute, the causeless cause.
Okay. Right.
Which is, other than the creator.
Yeah.
So another thing here, I want to harken back to something Scott mentioned last time. Universe, I think here's a really good example of where our universe is only one of an infinite number of universes. I would think that Scott's reference when he said that they're talking about solar systems, that the universe is a solar system. This is an example of that usage, because at this time the concept of a multiverse didn't exist. No one was saying that. I mean, not to my awareness anyway. In the 19th century, nobody was talking about multiverses, like universes being itself a sphere of which there are an infinite number. To my knowledge, no one was saying that. But infinite number of universes, solar systems, absolutely, right? And yet, it doesn't matter. You can put that term universe wherever you want to, because each is its own system, right? Whether you call it a universe or a solar system, or the one about, which not maybe said, or a galaxy, they're each universes from one perspective, right? Okay. I mean, as soon as you posit the concept of a multiverse, then the term universe ceases to have any meaning, right? If it means the one verse, the one existence, physically speaking, then if you have a multiverse, then a multiverse is not filled with universes. It's filled with some other kind of verses, because it's no longer a singular. But this is just semantics. As is so often the case when you read this, you find that the words just don't really make it work. However, the concepts work wherever in whatever way you apply to them, right? And one of those important concepts here is this idea of the sons of necessity, right? In fact, let's take a closer look at the idea behind this term. It only appears once in the whole Secret Doctrine, I was surprised to find, but is found in D.K.'s writing 3 additional times, all in a treatise on cosmic fire, not surprisingly. So if we could get an intrepid reader for this set, you'll see that the top three hold together as they are very related, and the bottom one he really steps out. That's in the last part of Treatise on Cosmic Fire, where he's talking about these higher cosmic realities. But anyway, if we could find a reader, please.
Yeah, Kay, can you read that for us, please? You're self-muted. There you go.
Is that Kay Hannah?
Yeah.
Sorry, DL, I can't do that, sweetie.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us, though, Kay. Appreciate it.
Martha,
Great to have you.
Can you read for us? You're self-muted.
Can you hear me?
There
Yes.
you go.
So the whole thing?
Yes, please.
Our universe is only one of an infinite number of universes, all of them sons of necessity, because links in the great cosmic chain of universes, each one standing in the relation of an effect as regards its predecessor, and being a cause as regards its successor.
So that's the one we just read, right? The only reference to this. Go ahead.
All these bodies, the body of a man, a planetary logos, and a solar logos, are the product of desire originating on the planes of abstract mind, whether cosmic, systemic, or mind in the three worlds, whether cosmic desire mind or human desire mind. And all their bodies are sons of necessity, as HPB so aptly expressed it.
So this is probably the single best definition of this concept, right? It is the fact of a manifestation creates a son of necessity. Okay, go ahead.
When the will to live vanishes, then the sons of necessity cease from objective manifestation. This is logically inevitable, and its working out can be seen in every case of entified objectivity. When the thinker on his own plane withdraws his attention from his little system within the three worlds and gathers within himself all his forces, then physical plane existence comes to an end and all returns within the causal consciousness.
Okay, so we're not just talking about solar systems here, right? This can be each of us as individual souls who's, as sons of necessity, send us into incarnation. Okay, go ahead. This one is the one that's out there. Just take it for what it is.
This first, sixth hierarchy has for its type of energy the first aspect of the sixth type of cosmic electricity and wields special power, therefore in conjunction with the lowest fire, or fire by friction, as it makes itself felt on the sixth plane. These lives are called the burning sons of desire, and were the sons of necessity. It is said of them in the old commentary, they burned to know, they rushed into the spheres. They are the longing of the father for the mother. Hence do they suffer, burn, and long through the sixth sphere of sense.
Okay, thank you. Nice reading. I may be a little prejudiced, but I thought it was a good reading. So, any comments, any thoughts, any questions? Anyone? I saw a hand flash for a second and then withdrawn. Any ideas about this? So, what's meant in that old commentary, they rushed into the spheres always being the symbol for that enclosing form aspect, So I guess everybody perfectly understands this, and we can move on. Okay. So the sixth sphere is the astral plane.
Now
we have comments. It always takes a little time.
Well, no, it keeps going up and
Oh, there it goes. I
Go
see
ahead.
the hand.
Go ahead,
I'm trying
Larry.
to work out what the sons of necessity really means. I've
Well,
puzzled
this is, yeah, go
before,
ahead.
before you know, when I first read the Secret Doctrine. Now, it's still unclear to me.
You know, yeah, let's reread the second one, the second of these quotes. I think that is the best definition. All these bodies, the body of a man, a planetary logos, and a solar system, are the product of desire originating on the plane of abstract mind, whether cosmic, systemic, or mind in the three worlds, whether cosmic desire mind or human desire mind, and all are their bodies, and all their bodies are sons of necessity. So this is the best description. Any unit of consciousness that desires incarnation is a son of necessity, which is everything during this period, right?
So the necessity means the commitment to incarnation.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's it. It's the will to be is another way of looking at it. You say it's a very first to seventh kind of a connection, right? First plane, seventh plane kind of a connection, right? You said it though, right? It's the desire for incarnation. Yeah. Nothing evil in this. This is the way of this time of manifestation. This is what describes all units of consciousness that are in manifestation. Okay?
And then Scott has a comment. Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say the sons of necessity here. Also remember just that basic trinity of Father, Mother, Son. And the will to live is clearly the Father, and we just know that when the will is gone, is withdrawn, then the form dissolves and the Son is released.
Yeah, that's really good. Good comment. Right. So it's the Son is the result of this desire of the Father for the Mother, which is somewhere in this quote, right?
Yeah, and the Mother is maybe aspect of the necessity as well. There's the necessity when the will combines with the entifying material of that. A son is born out of necessity.
There it is. Yeah, that's well said. Yeah. I think the son aspect here is key. So I'm really glad you brought that forward. It reminds me, nothing is outside of this condition that we're looking at here, right? It's like if you, as I'm fond of doing, if you look at the Vescopices and you take the circle of deity, which is the Father, and the circle of the Mother, and they overlap and create that mandorla shape in the middle. Everything that is in that mandorla. It's not. There is nothing. The Father and the pure Father aspect and the pure Mother aspect are in the realm of concept in terms of the effect of those two coming together. That is all of manifestation, and all could be described as sons of necessity. Right? Any other thoughts there, Scott?
Looking at the three types of electricity in the bottom, and also the sixth, of course, the sixth plane here we're talking about in terms of desire, all the sixes. But you have your cosmic electricity and your lowest fire by friction, and solar fire, which is the result of the the conjunction with the lowest. And that's what we're talking about here as well.
Right. And interestingly, one description of that would be 666.
Right.
right? Which would be this fulsomeness of the desire nature. You know?
And a particular logos in our system.
Yeah, that too. Yeah. Do we know which logos that is?
Do we? Do we?
That's
we can guess, but I don't know. Do we know?
yeah, it's, you know, doesn't necessarily relate to the ray. You know, it's not necessarily Mars, for instance. It's could be, but it could be, you know, who knows? I mean, our logos is 777. And I think somewhere in the first page, gosh, where is that? The last pages of the first section of TCF, he gives this information. He said there is an 888 out there somewhere, I think. But he describes other. And it's as though the triple number is what sets one off as a logos, because they're working on these three planes. A 66 would be a very different kind of being than a 666, for instance.
And it's for, are we counting up or counting down too? For us to be a 777, we may be counting down as a non-sacred planet, but 666 may push it up to the second plane, maybe talking about Venus.
Could be.
Or something like that.
It could be. I think you would have to look at this.
Maybe it's not that.
I'd like to put this in context. I'd like to put this paragraph in context to, you know, whatever else is on page 1197, and you might get a little more idea, right, as to what he's talking about here. But nothing jumps into my mind based on this information. I mean, you could go to something like Neptune, but I think it's not necessarily the case.
I don't think so either.
Yeah.
It's not that simple.
Yeah, exactly. It's yeah.
Nothing is.
So it would seem. Okay. Onward and upward, folks.
And Jeremy says, could we say the sons of necessity refer to the second aspect of the divine Trinity at all levels?
I think that's accurate. I think that's accurate. Just because of the quality of the sons, even though he says it is the desire of the father for the mother, it's really what results is what is being described by the sons of necessity here. So yeah, I think that's accurate. Anyone else? Okay.
That's it for right now.
Okay. Okay, see, where are we? Let's go ahead then. Back to the last part of section B here. So still talking about sons of necessity and being immersed in paranishpana. Can we get a reader for this last section?
Helen, can you read that for us, please?
Yes. The appearance and disappearance of the universe are pictured as an outbreathing and an inbreathing of the great breath, which is eternal, and which, being motion, is one of the three aspects of the absolute, abstract, space, and duration being the other two. When the great breath is projected, it is called the divine breath, and is regarded as the breathing of the unknowable deity, the one existence, which breathes out a thought, as it were, which becomes the cosmos. See Isis Unveiled. So also is it when the divine breath is inspired again, the universe disappears into the bosom of the Great Mother, who then sleeps wrapped in her invisible robes.
Okay, this is really esoteric stuff. Start thinking about your thoughts and questions, contributions. Here, HPB modifies the statement she made about the number of attributes of the absolute earlier in the proem, right at the beginning of the proem, in fact, where she was talking so much about the great breath. Only the great breath was listed as an attribute of the absolute. Here she adds both abstract space and duration as attributes. You know, it could be that pointing this out is just a niggle, as it doesn't really change our understanding. It just shows, mostly it just shows the limitation of language. The argument has been made and is held by some that that primordial element called the absolute can have no attributes. That is to say, can have no qualities other than beingness. But I'm of the thought that perhaps abstract motion, abstract space, and abstract duration are intrinsic to beingness rather than them being really an attribute of them. But you can see this is just semantics. By the way, keep in mind that the term duration, as here used, stands in a causal relation to time as we know it. Just as abstract space stands in a causal relation to three-dimensional space, and abstract motion, this is, I think, especially important because it's specifically related to the abstract, to the great breath, stands in a causal relationship to motion as we know it. This causal motion is what is referred to as the great breath. Here's a list, mostly gathered from the poem, of other names for the great breath. So could we get a reader for this, please?
Sure.
You'll notice how strongly it's connected to thought and to mentation, pre-ideation, pre-cosmic ideation, that kind of thing.
Nicholas, can you read that for us, please?
You there? Is he self-muted?
No, he's not. Okay, let's move on. Scott, can you read that for us, please?
Speaking to me.
Yes, please.
Okay. The great breath. Absolute abstract motion. Chit. Chaitanya. Mahat. Mahabhuti. The divine breath. Eternal ceaseless motion. An arcane living or moving fire. Pre-cosmic ideation. Absolute unconditioned consciousness. Universal mind. Pure noumenon of thought. Immutable divine thought. The universal world soul.
Thanks, Scott. So, the great breath. We might say it's the initial bridging mechanism of the unknowable deity, or the absolute, carrying on that breath a thought that becomes the cosmos. Remember, she conditions this idea of it being a thought. What does she say here? A thought, as it were, right? It's really pre-cosmic ideation. So you could say it's the energy of thought before it becomes thought. Might be one way of looking at it. Let's see, where am I? This non-creating creator is a kind of ultimate koan. It's really hard to come to grips with the fact that the absolute doesn't create, and yet all of manifestation issues from it. That's just one of, it's like I said, it's like an ultimate koan. So it's just one of those things you can't really, through information gathering, bridge that gap with understanding, right? But one of the things you can see here in this list is, first of all, how oriented it is towards mind, universal mind. The great breath is universal mind, so it's interesting. The great breath seems so much like a metaphor. It's absolute motion, absolute abstract motion. So there, if we're linking these metaphors, the idea of abstract motion and pre-cosmic ideation, or that which precedes thought, divine thought that is, are one and the same. Something in the kind of motion that's being described here, some kind of essential causal motion, is one with this, the noumenon of thought, right? So, I mean, on certain levels, you can see it, can't you? The idea that thought is motion. You can experience it in your own thinking, that it has its own kind of movement, and velocity, right? What do they say? Still your mind, It's very much connected with movement in that way. Anyway, so if there's no thoughts or questions, on to part C of this verse. So now we're talking about absolute perfection, parinirvana, which is Yongrub, to be outbreathed by that which is and yet is not was. Okay, so that's the part of the verse that she's addressing here. If we could get a reader for this first part.
Michael, can you read that for us, please?
Okay. By that which is and yet is not is meant the great breath itself, which we can only speak of as absolute existence, but cannot picture to our imagination as any form of existence that we can distinguish from non-existence. The three periods, the present, the past, and the future, are in the esoteric philosophy a compound time, for the three are a composite number only in relation to the phenomenal plane, but in the realm of noumena have no abstract validity. As said in the scriptures, the past time is the present time, as also the future, which, though it has not come into existence, still is, according to a precept in the Prasanga
Madhyamika.
Thank you, teaching, whose dogmas have been known ever since it broke away from the purely esoteric schools.
Okay, so we're talking about existence and time in this, she's trying to pitch us beyond each of these as we understand these concepts to be, right? That's the whole point of this. So any thoughts or questions about this? She starts by saying that from a human perspective, absolute existence and non-existence are indistinguishable from each other. We can't we can't parse any difference between absolute existence and non-existence. So I would suggest that even high initiates would be unable to make this distinction on cosmic levels, right? HPB then makes a point that in the noumenal realms, past, present, and future, quote, have no abstract validity. I think this is the key phrase here, which is a way of saying that they are non-causal, because abstract validity means that they're causal, but are rather effects of the illusory perspective of physical plane consciousness. Any ideas about it? Any thoughts about this? Right? And she relates this again to the great breath. So see, one movement that you can see is in time, as it moves from past to future, riding the existing moment. But that motion, the causal energy to outer motion is similar to the causal quality of the time, or which is called duration, which embraces all three forms of time as we know them, right? Which is past, present, future. So it's fairly easy to grasp intellectually the idea of those 3 points of time being one thing. You know, that time is a totality. But if you actually try to have an experience of it, it requires the intuition to bring you into alignment with that reality. And, you know, that is usually the case with the material that we're looking at here. You can get sometimes some mental idea, but any actual sense of these concepts, it's going to come through you through the intuition.
We get into a definition of time itself, which I think the Tibetan gave, if I'm remembering correctly, as stages of consciousness, essentially, where stages of sequence of consciousness.
That's it.
Yeah, and
she says something similar here. That's the kind. Yeah.
And you think about
the illusion of time.
Time does not exist when we're asleep, because in our physical consciousness, or brain consciousness anyway, we're not there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the experience of time doesn't exist while we're asleep. Or I think more accurately, it's a different experience of time. You know?
And essentially, we only live in the moment.
Yeah, that's the whole idea behind the Be Here Now movement. And kind of ironically, the best way to get into this concept of all three being one, past, present, future being one, is to become fully in the moment, which is full, because the orientation on past and future are truly and totally of our own imaginings. You know, they have nothing to do with actual time at all. Right? There's going to be more in the next paragraph, so let's hold a complete analysis until we get that information. Any other thoughts specifically about this paragraph before we move on?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, please, Asha.
Actually, it was not specifically about this, so I'll hold my comment.
No, go ahead, Asha. Go ahead.
I'm kind of so awed by all these teachings, and there's a feeling response that there's nothing random in these higher realms, and everything is so magnificent that when I think of humanity and what it has done with its free will and the aberration it's created, and it's very humbling. It's very humbling to see planet Earth and what humanity has done, and the little Asha wonders why God in his infinite, the creator, and if it's infinite wisdom and all this complexity and all this order, would want to expand the borders of its kingdom and give the free will it did to humanity. That thought just piqued. It just made me think, and then what we did with it. But then here we are studying this with our minds, going from lower to higher mind and transcending into the intuition. So I guess we become the sons of necessity as creators of it. We become it in a way, in a Holy Grail way, having done that journey. I don't know if I'm making myself understood. It's kind of simplistic beyond when I think of all the complexities staring at me in front of the screen. But that was just a feeling response to all this knowledge. You know, it comes more from the desire, feminine mother principle, when we talked about the Trinity earlier, and we had the will, the Father, and then the Son. So this is just a comment, you know, just so thank you for, you know, listening and evoking it and getting me to sort of intuit and transcend all this in my own understanding. That was all I had to say.
Thank you for your patience in all this. It can be difficult to stick with, but you know, I would like to address one comment you made, because I think it's very intuitive, which is that there's a seeming extraordinary complexity in what we're taking on here. You know, I mean, you're the survivors, right? This is really a lot to do. But I think each of us, maybe I'm presumptuous in extending this, but can feel in the best sense of the word, simple, the simplicity that underlies or stands behind this, you know, this enormous amount of complexity that really comes down to all these different attempts or methods to try to describe something that is beyond description. And that as you go towards that, you move into a simpler, a more primal realm of awareness, right? Not simplistic, but as you said, the randomness and the chaos is resolved by the higher laws into rhythm and order and unity. And you start seeing the unity actually exhibiting itself, you know, it's showing up. So, yeah, thanks for your comment.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, let's head into the next, because it's so much related. I'd like to head into the next part here. Oh, by the way, she mentions a school, Prasanga Madhyamika, a Buddhist school of philosophy in Tibet. It follows, like the Yogacarya system, the Mahayana, or a great vehicle of precepts. But having been founded far later than the Yogacarya, it is not half so rigid and severe. It is semi-exoteric and very popular system among the literati and laymen. Okay, so that said, let's go on. And you'll see that this also relates to the time conversation. Can we get a reader, please?
Asha, can you read that for us, please?
Okay, yes. Our ideas, in short, on duration and time are all derived from our sensations according to the laws of association. Inextricably bound up with the relativity of human knowledge, they nevertheless can have no existence except in the experience of the individual ego, and perish when its evolutionary march dispels the maya of phenomenal existence. What is time, for instance, but the panoramic succession of our states of consciousness? In the words of the master, I feel irritated. Oh, even masters get irritated. Cool. I feel irritated at having to use these three clumsy words, past, present, and future, miserable concepts of the objective phases of the subjective whole. They're about as ill adapted for the purpose as an axe for fine carving. One has to acquire paramartha, lest one should become too easy a prey in samariti,
No, samvriti.
Samriti is a philosophical action.
Okay, thank you, Asha. You were fading in and out there, but hopefully it
Yeah,
wasn't
it's
happening
difficult
before.
to see the screen because it's lit up, so I can't focus that easily. Sorry about that.
No. It was there was some kind of problem with your sound. It was weaving in and out. It's not to worry. Okay, thoughts or questions about this? Now, you know, Michael, when you were looking for that quote, something very similar is put here: is what is time but the panoramic succession of our states of consciousness, right? So it's like linked together instances of our manifested states of consciousness, right? That give us the illusory quality of time. So aside from the dubious assertion that masters get irritated, we discover in this commentary that the apparent divisions of time are an illusion created by, quote, objective phases of the subject, let me say that again, objective phases of the subjective whole. It's a very important phrase, created by the laws of association. So we create the sense of time through the law of association, which is inherent to existence in the three worlds, ruled by time and space. Remember, duration, as used in the SD, stands in a causal relation to time as we understand it. It's not that, you know, you're not going to get this in the dictionary like so many of these words. In duration, past, present, and future are not separate and equally coexist. The idea is easy. Actually having the experience of it is not so much. But an important point here is that, let's see, where was it? That phrase in the previous sentence. Has that in the realm of noumena, time has no abstract validity. That it's an effect not of a source at a higher level, but rather of our own sensations, as is described here, according to laws of associations. We create it as the illusory nature of it, that is. Okay. All right. Any thoughts or questions about this?
There is only one other reference to the laws of association in Isis Unveiled, the 2 volumes, and the 3 volumes of the Secret Doctrine, and all the Bailey books. And that reference happens in Secret Doctrine 1 on page 292.
Can you read it?
It's Jana Sakti, the power of intellect of real wisdom or knowledge. It has 2 aspects. The following are some of its manifestations when placed under the influence or control of material conditions. A, the power of the mind in interpreting our sensations. B, its power in recalling past ideas, memory, and raising future expectation. C, its power as exhibited in what are called by modern psychologists, quote, the laws of association, unquote, which enables it to form persisting connections between various groups of sensations and possibilities of sensations, and thus generate the notion or idea of an external object. D, its power in connecting our ideas together by the mysterious link of memory, and thus generating the notion of self or individuality. Some of its manifestations, when liberated from the bonds of matter, are A, clairvoyance, B, psychometry.
Great, thanks very much. Yeah, so you can see this law of association has to do with the mental rather than specifically with time. It's that through our particular use, and I might say of the left left brain, which is where this what Michael just read lives, right? For instance, the sensation of individuality, and the laws of association. That's what allows us to function in the three worlds. Thank you. That was very useful. Yeah. Gosh, I wish I could remember the name of the wonderful TED Talk where this this researcher in brain functionality had a stroke, and she recalls and describes in a TED Talk her experience of this stroke from the perspective of
Jill Bolte Taylor.
who is it again?
Jill Bolte Taylor.
Jill Bolte Taylor is the name of this. So if you want to experience an amazing TED Talk, that's what it's yeah, it's really amazing, and it's an experience of unity with all that is, from her being cut off from the left hemisphere of her brain, and therefore from what Michael just described, laws of association, the ability to literally create our reality out of what stands before us, right? The objective world. So it's fabulous, fabulous listen if you want to try that out. Okay, any other thoughts about this?
Go ahead, please, Asha.
Yeah, I saw Jill's interview with Oprah, and she describes incredibly how she got that. But I've always said there's like 7 billion subjective realities, and it's a miracle if any communication happens, because you can say one thing and then another person interprets it in another way. And this to me is a higher description of that psychological phenomenon. I've always said silence is the best communicator. Just sit with somebody in silence is better. So this is like this is bringing that home to me. And she says inexplicably rounds up with the relativity of human knowledge. So this to me, from where I interpret it, in my is talking about everybody having their own subjective interpretation, because our ideas in short and duration are all derived from our sensations according to the laws of association. So we are all, our subjective microcosms until we get to that oneness, I guess. I don't know. Where
until we at least
is lost, where the subjectivity is lost, and the relativity is lost.
Exactly. Yeah. Anyone here, anyone listening, that is a part of this discussion, is either had an experience with the subjective world or is convinced of its existence, and therefore has some balance in their own conception of how reality is, right? But yeah, I really strongly recommend it's revelatory, really is. And it's the same thing that we're trying to do in meditation, but in a controlled way, right? Through silence, as you say, it's the best way. You quiet this aspect that's being described, so that you can move into the subjective, realm. That's
and the past, present, and future, we know, is simultaneous. I mean, quantum physics, they'd say that with all simultaneity. So that's why those are miserable concepts in that sense, because they're simultaneous.
Yeah, that can lead you astray. They're coexistent, I think, would be
coexistence. Yes, that's a better word. Yeah.
I think so, because simultaneous specifically points to them existing at the same time.
Yes, yes,
You know,
yes,
whereas coexistent, allows, for their
yes, yes.
illusory quality. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Let's take a look
And
at. Yeah,
Scott,
go ahead. Do you have more?
Scott has his hand up. Go ahead, Scott.
I have some more on the aspect of time, but I don't know if you want to get into it.
No, let's do it. Let's do it. Actually, we're not going to move on because it's
that time.
10 till the hour. It's that time. But let's use your ideas as concluding ideas.
I'm paraphrasing from TCF on what he has to say about time there. He's talking about time being this way, speaks of it, the planet repulses a planet similarly charged, for it is a known law that all like particles repel each other. But occultly, it is a known law that they will eventually attract each other as the vibration becomes sufficiently strong. And this is the manifestation of sex and substance of every kind. It says, only when the form is transcended and spirit seeks out spirit will the phenomena of repulsion cease. This will be the inevitable finale of the cessation of solar evolution, and will bring about pralaya. The duration of the interplay, the period of the search of spirit for spirit, and the vibratory process necessitated by the utilization of the form, this we call time, whether in connection with a man, a planetary logos, or the deity.
Wow.
Says,
that is out there.
Out there, it is. But that's another way of looking at time. And
so am I getting it that he's saying that what we call time is that period where like repels, that during the period of like repels, time is experienced, and that when you move,
under the law of attraction, when that finally holds sway and we go spirit for spirit, time ceases.
Wow. And of course, he also says that, hey, even death brings a radically different experience of time. I can't remember where he said it, somewhere in esoteric psychology, I think. He says, shortly after death, you start moving into a completely different understanding of time. So it's not just, a solar logos that gets it about this idea of the laws of association creating this illusion. It's, it's just outside of this hypnosis that these three worlds create for us.
He says time and space are simply forms of ideas to express the cyclic activity of an entity. The subject is exceedingly abstruse due to the low stage of the human intelligence. Here, right? Which is as yet so occupied with the objective and material side of manifestation that the attraction existing between spirit and spirit is little more than a concept.
There you have it. Yeah. Yes, indeed. Well, properly chastised with my low intelligence, I will.
We all share. Yeah,
well, it really, of course, when he says that, it has to do with consciousness, it's the development of mind towards becoming more conscious, rather than knowing more about more stuff. It's not a horizontal expansion that he's talking about. It's just verticality. Well, it's been lovely, folks. I always enjoy this. I hope you do too. You've hung with us, and I think the concepts are getting deeper, more potent as we settle into this material. And next time we'll continue heading towards the end of this stanza. when we do reach the end of the stanza, there's 9 of these verses, we'll have finished 1/7, can you believe it, of the first volume of the Secret Doctrine, which is pretty amazing. Okay, that's it. If anybody has the final comments they want to make, otherwise, that's it for now. Okay. Thank you very much for coming, and I'll see you on, next time is, I believe, going to occur on the 4th rather than the 3rd Sunday of January. Isn't that correct, Biel? The
Yes,
20-something.
yes, the 20-something, the 27th.
The 27th.
Right.
Just show up on the 20-something and you'll be fine.
Right.
27th is better. Yeah. So yeah, we have a direct conflict with a full moon meditation there on the 3rd Sunday. So we're going for the 4th. So that means at least 5 weeks away, maybe 6. I haven't counted them. But until then, be well and Happy New Year.
Happy holidays, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye for now.